Welcome back to our series where we get to know some of the Equus coaches trained by the Center for Equus Coaching. But if you're new to hearing about this work, you might be asking, what is Equus Coaching? In shorthand form, it's a unique and highly effective approach to interpersonal development facilitated by horses and certified life coaches. My guess, however, is the coaches you meet through these conversations will help make this even clearer as they share about their work, the benefits their clients are seeing, and how their amazing horse partners are helping in the process. My name is Travis Stock, and I've been an Equus coach since 2013. I'm also one of the instructors for the Center for Equus Coaching. And the next coach joining me, Janine Davis, is a certified Equus Coaching Master Facilitator with loads of experience offering executive coaching and cultural development for startups, high growth, and mature companies prior to becoming an Equus coach. There's so much more about her background, but I'm going to let her get into it. So hopefully she'll share more about it as we chat. Thanks for joining me, Janine.
Thanks for having me. I think that's your nice way of saying she's really old. She's done so much.
Oh, no way. I'm just impressed by the amount of things that are on your resume because you've continued to build your skill set very clearly over your career. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you was because you were already a successful coach, executive coach. You already had a business before this. And so like, first of all, I just say I'm honored that you chose our program to continue your learning through what we were doing was valuable enough to you. But also like, I'm really curious like about how you got into the work with Equus coaching too. So we'll learn about your other work in a second, but how did you first hear about the Center for Equus Coaching?
Yeah, so I'm with an organization called Evolution, and one of the other managing partners is very good friends with Mary Kay Durant that I know many
Mm,
of you know. And so and basically they organized an Equus workshop for some of the Evolution coaches. So a handful of us, probably 10 or 11 of us, went down to Featherheart Ranch and did a program with Mary Kay and Renee. And so I was already a coach and I'm an animal fanatic. I already do a program with wolves and I did the horse thing. I'm like, well, duh, because I've always been a horse person. So it was just sort of like, how can I not do this? It didn't make sense for me not to become an Equus coach.
I love that how many of us in this world were like, we just showed up to something that we didn't really know what it was. And then we were like, well, how can I not do that? That was totally my experience also
Yeah.
when I started doing this work.
Yeah. And, even going through the program, in addition, I've already been through a coach training program before. I was, already decertified. I also was faculty of Evolution's coach training program, so
Hmm.
we accredited coaches. And people sometimes ask me, why'd you go through it again? It's totally different. It's
Hmm.
completely different. I learned completely different things. The ways that you teach the core competencies are different. So the whole thing was just good old fun for me.
Oh, I love that you had that. So I heard in that you do some work with wolves also. So and you have this sort of like drawing to animal. What is it about horses that made you want to add that to your coaching practice? Like what do they add to your work that you didn't have before?
I mean, I think in general, I think nature and animals are somewhat smarter than humans.
Truth.
Not super mean, but I just feel like there's so much wisdom they can provide and ways of accessing yourself that you cannot access in other sort of types of leadership development and coaching. So I think especially in the areas of self-awareness and understanding the impact you have energetically on another living creature, it's one thing that's super important, as well as the team dynamic. So both wolves and horses, they're pack animals,
Mm.
and how they interact is in my opinion, quite a bit healthier than maybe some human team dynamics and structures. So I just think there's an enormous amount of learning that can come from those. Plus, like,
Yeah.
you just get to hug them and they're so cute.
Unlike the wolves, you don't really get to hug that
No,
many
I
wolves out
do.
there.
No, they will give you kisses. They are very sweet.
Love
Don't,
that.
yeah, go ahead.
That's really cool. I love that element that you drew out about that both of the animals that you're drawn to working with are pack animals or herd animals. They live in communities of their own. And that's one of the things I like to highlight about working with horses is that when we as humans get to interact with horses, we go into a relationship with an animal that has its own society, its own culture, its own power dynamics, its own ways of socializing its young, its own everything. And so we get to see another model when we do that. We get to reflect on like, oh, there are other ways to do it. And is the way that I'm holding that, and is my definition of leadership or power, is that serving me, or are there other ways that are modeled by another being that might be available for me to integrate into my own life? So I love that both the animals you work with are animals that belong together. They understand that the safety exists in numbers, and then the success as a species exists
Right.
because of their numbers.
Yeah, and there's just a general respect of every role, as
Mm,
opposed to this role is more important than that role. And I think both follow a model of circular leadership. So whatever role needs to be in the lead position at any given moment based on everything is what happens. So
mm.
it's quite different.
Yeah, very different than we as humans. We're kind of looking at different leadership models as humans and elections and different things. And there's definitely tension around that. And we're sort of exploring, like, are our leadership models actually working for us? Are they serving us? And I think that's the gift that these animals can give us, is that they give us the opportunity to even just reflect on a different model.
Yeah.
So Equus coaching is this thing. I kind of gave a little brief definition in that intro of it, and it's very sort of like shorthand form of it. But I think it's more important to hear from a lot of different kinds of us, that, like, what is Equus coaching to us? How do we describe it to people out there? It's something that many of us are trying to put words to, but it's so experiential that it's like people get it once they do it.
Yeah.
But if you had to try to, like, pitch and sell or talk about what this work is so that people understood it, what are the kinds of words and language you put to it that describe what Equus coaching is?
Well, you're going to laugh at me because what I'm starting to do is actually say less. I'm like, just trust me. Seriously, in the last two workshops I've done, I'm like, I'm not telling you what we're doing. You just got to come and it's going to be awesome. And you just have
Yeah.
to trust me. If I have to explain it in a more logical fashion, I will typically say that it's an experience where you get to partner with a nonverbal entity that, sort of like what you said, operates in a really different way than we do in terms of how they communicate and how they interact with other horses and other humans, and explore how you communicate and how you impact them and vice versa. It gives you a chance to really look at self-awareness in a new way. And a lot of people gain new self-awareness. And because I'm an executive coach and I work with a lot of teams, I'll also bring that piece in, that it really gives you an opportunity to understand team dynamics through watching how the horses, model really healthy team dynamics. And then I say, just trust me.
That is the cool part about our work, is that oftentimes if you just say, just come hang out with me with some horses, that's enough of a buy-in and a sell right there.
True.
um,
I mean, the other thing, I sometimes use, because I have this, I'm a nerdy neuroscience person. If there's people that are a bit skeptical or a bit more left-brained, sometimes what I'll say is that that new neural pathways, new ways of, sort of sparking ways of being or changing behavior, happen through novelty.
mm,
So because you're in the situation that's so weird, it's unusual, you're outside in nature with animals, and, whether it's horses or wolves or whatever, it just allows you to access new pieces of awareness or ways of tackling things that you just don't have access to otherwise. So that kind of gets people, and it's like, okay, that makes sense. I can do that, and I'll probably get something from it.
oh, I love that description. There's such a, like, push in our current culture around, like, psychedelics and their ways of opening up new neural pathways and thinking differently. But what you're telling me is you could just go stand next to a horse and do the same thing.
Seriously, like, I do a program in Kenya as well. And when I describe that to people, I'm like, if you've ever done a psychedelic journey, it's exactly like that. Or
Hmm.
if you've done, it's sort of like packing a year or two of therapy or coaching into a day. You
Yeah.
get enormous impact from a very short amount of time.
Yeah, that's so true. I talk to my clients about that too, about, we're going to, like, I do other kinds of coaching that don't involve horses too, but I'm like, if I could just get you out with a horse, we could fast track this whole thing. We could do that whole year in that one session.
Right. We're gonna like work ourselves out of a job though, because we were like,
Yeah, it's kind of the silly business model that us coaches do. And inevitably, we would like to actually work ourselves out of a job so people actually can manage this on their own. But it is a strange business model we have as
yep,
coaches.
yeah.
So you just did an event that I was really curious about. I had seen you posting about it on social media and really defining what this was. And it's something that's new to my life. And so I'm going to need you to explain a little bit of it as we get into this, so that other people can understand what we're talking about. But I'm guessing this comes from your sort of leadership and executive development, that you utilize different assessment tools that help people understand themselves, their desires, their motivators, their fears, all of those kinds of things. And one of those that I think you utilize in your other work that you've now started blending with Equus coaching is the Enneagram. Can you describe what Enneagram is so that people understand that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So it is one of many personality assessments. A lot of people know like MBTI and DISC and other things like that. The Enneagram has its roots, however, in ancient wisdom, although it was scientifically validated, in the more uh, recent past. But it is an assessment that basically you take a test, you go through a typing process, which can be quite nuanced, actually. It's not a super cut and clear, dry type of assessment, but there's these 9 primary types, and they essentially describe how you function when you're at, really firing on all cylinders, where you are neutral, and what happens when you're in a state of stress. So it's quite developmental in nature. It's not just this is who you are. It's more like if you can develop certain qualities, you can really express yourself in the most, whole way possible.
Yeah. And let me know if I'm getting this right. My understanding of Enneagram is like some assessments can be really about assessing people's behavior out there in the world, but Enneagram's actually trying to get below that and look at your motivators, like what drives behavior. Is that true?
It is definitely, there's a tie-in about the core fears you've got, the instinctual elements that will impact how you show up. I actually, when I'm describing it, often though do talk about behaviors because people can recognize themselves
Yeah.
easily that way. And then when you get into it, then you can get into some of those more core things because it becomes quite evident. When you do this behavior, what's underneath that is this.
Hmm.
As you know, where actual sustainable change can happen is if they can make shifts at that level.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe one thing that might be helpful for people to hear is like examples of what one or two of the archetypes are. So maybe we can each share a little bit about our own. Like what's your archetype in the Enneagram?
I'm a 3, which is an achiever. I actually thought I was a 2 for quite some time, but
Mm.
actually something that happens quite often is people realize their essence is different than what they originally thought. So I had to function as a 2, which is the helper, which I will hear about in a
Mm-hmm.
second.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm actually a 3. So achievers are very, very goal oriented, very focused on efficiency, can be quite impatient. We
Mm.
get irritated when people don't just know how to do things right. But, on the plus side, we're actually really good at getting things done, and we can sort of see the big picture as well as execute on it. So a lot of leaders end up being achievers just because you're just sort of naturally led to that kind of a function.
Well, as I was talking about your resume, it does not surprise me that you're a 3, the achiever. There are a lot of achievements on there.
Right? Can't help myself.
And I fit in as a 2, which Janine thought she was for a long time. And tell me if I've gotten anything wrong about my understanding of it, because I'm still pretty new to the Enneagram. But I fit pretty classically as a 2. The 2 is the helper. The 2 is somebody that is very attuned to other people's emotions and other people's needs and moves into acts of service and wants to help. And that's how I gain a sense of self, is by being of service and help to others, sometimes to the detriment of even being aware of what my own needs and wants and feelings are. So I'm very like feelings motivated. I'm very action motivated, but my like critical thought about some of that is a little bit lacking. I can miss out on information about what I need in some moments because I'm overly paying attention to other people. But it also makes me really good at being a life coach because I'm of service to other people. So it's like a gift and sometimes has its weaknesses to it when I over apply it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a great description. I think other things to be aware of as a 2 is that 2s can burn out. And at a certain point, if you give too much and you're not acknowledged or appreciated, there might be a
Definitely been there.
blow up. There might be a little bit of a what?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so that will sometimes happen. And actually, 2s, it's interesting, can be quite controlling, but they're very, very subtle about how they do it. They do it through, it sounds like a horrible thing, but essentially through manipulation of the relationships that they're
Mm-hmm.
in. So there can be a control element to it. But
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. If we're so attuned to other people's emotions, we might have an understanding of how to utilize those in certain moments. And I
yeah,
can totally see that in myself. It's hard for a 2 to admit that because I think our primary emotion we're working through is shame. And so it's hard to acknowledge the fact that we might have some controlling elements to the way that we do it. But I can totally see that to myself. When I'm stressed, when I'm out of balance, when I'm over giving, I do start to utilize those methods.
right. And
So
to be clear, every type has like gifts and shadows.
yeah. Yeah. So Why do you is using the Enneagram a helpful resource for people to understand themselves?
I think again, it's helpful because it's quite developmental in nature. So it's creepily accurate. So once you're actually properly typed, especially with the nuance around it, which we don't have time to really go through,
Yeah.
it's almost like people just like have this sigh of relief, like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like I get myself now. And you can sort of see like, okay, when I'm stressed out, of course, that's exactly what happens with me. And what can I do to try to prevent that and get in a more grounded state and sort of be how I'd like to be in the best way possible. So it's almost like there's this gift of just self acknowledgement and self acceptance that comes from it when you actually sort of know who you are from it.
It's so true. That exhale happens. I just witnessed it in my husband. My husband's been trying to type himself for a while, and he finally landed on the fact that he's a nine on the Enneagram. And as soon as someone described a nine to him, like there was an exhale and almost tears came. It was like a relief to like, oh, I finally found it. And it makes so much sense what I've been trying to figure out this whole time.
Exactly. And I don't see that visible sigh of relief with other personality assessments.
Right.
Not to say that they're not incredibly valuable and have great info, but it's different.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think as we start to talk about how this relates to Equus coaching, one of the things I mentioned in the definition is that Equus coaching really allows like interpersonal kind of work and relational type work because we're in a relationship with a being that doesn't speak the same language as we do. And I think that's one of the ways that I found Enneagram most beneficial is it helps me to know the types of other people in my life because it helps me understand what's motivating their behaviors, what's behind it, to work with it, to have more compassion for why they show up in certain ways when they're stressed. It really helps that interpersonal thing. So let's talk about your actual recent event that you did. Why did you want to bring Equus coaching and Enneagram together and how did it go? Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, for sure. So actually, it wasn't my original idea. It
Mm.
came through Mary Kay and the other managing partner, Erin, that works with me. She makes me look like I don't know anything about the Enneagram. She's the expert in it. So they actually had the idea years ago. And then, throughout me getting certified, we decided to do this. So we actually did it for a group of 16 evolution coaches that were coming in town for one of our all hands. We have a bunch of global coaches all over. And the idea was because, it's the Enneagram is so focused on self-awareness, and that's such a key component of working with horses is building that self-awareness. It just seemed like a natural way for people to explore, either to get clear on what their type was, because some people were not,
Hmm.
and or to sort of explore what does that mean, or what happens when I'm like really using the gifts of my type, or what am I noticing are coming up as the shadow pieces as I'm working with a horse. They make it very easy to have those things sort of brought up to the surface. So that's the why.
Yeah, so I want to go even more granular, like because I think you and I, or any of us as Equus coaches, know what we mean when we say working with a horse. Can you make that even more basic for somebody who's watching this that's new to Equus coaching?
Yeah, I'll give a couple of examples. Is that good?
Mm. Yeah, please.
Okay, so one person thought that they were an Enneagram 8, which is a type called the Challenger. They are very visionary and hard impact, can really drive things. Quite impatient also. A lot of CEOs are type 8s. So the exercise we did was in basically a large pen, a large sort of paddock area. There was one horse and there was a team of 5 people. And there was a lot of obstacles set up around this paddock area. And the team had to non-verbally communicate with each other to essentially invite the horse to do things around these obstacles. So in the course of this exercise, this person who was quite sure she was an 8 was going to go in there and just like take charge and, kind of lead the horse, and the horse is going to do what I want. The people are just going to know what I'm thinking. Found herself really taking almost like a subservient uh, stance. She was just kind of
Interesting.
hanging back and just sort of like more observing. And she noticed she was quite um, cognizant of what was happening amongst the people and the horse, and just noticing. She was noticing energy. She was noticing what was happening, making sure everyone felt okay as a system. And in the aftermath of that, she came to realize, after reflecting that she was not an 8, she's actually what your husband is, a 9,
A
the
nine.
who are literally about keeping peace within systems. And, which is a beautiful thing, the more, maybe, I don't know if it's a challenge, but things that are sometimes more difficult for nines are being quite direct about communication. They can be kind of vague because they don't want to rock the boat. So that showed up in how she was in this exercise. She was not being super clear about what she wanted, even though she thought she was going to be. So that was something that came out of that particular exercise.
And how did the horse respond during all of that different time? Like
Yeah.
she had this idea she was going to do this, but then she's kind of sitting back worried about the peace between all the human members of the element. Like how was the horse responding?
Well, interestingly, in that particular group, nobody was very directive.
Uh,
So the horse was kind of like, hi, like, what do I do? We did stuff, but just there was not a lot of clear communication being given. And it's really funny because, amongst the coaches that we have, a lot of them are ex-operators and ex-executives are used to leading. And everybody's just kind of like, hmm. So
so the horse just mirrors that back to them and just sits there,
exactly.
goes, hmm.
Exactly. And yet, even though there wasn't necessarily all that much activity, there was this enormous, realization that this particular person had about who she at her core was.
And was there anything that she was able to do with that realization to like take it and evolve her strategies or evolve what she was doing based on that realization?
I mean, it's a little bit TBD because it was fairly recent and it's sort of
Uh-huh.
like, oh, this is who I am. Okay, now what do I do?
Ah.
So I think she's really currently in a period of just really reflecting on what that means and how she shows up. And I think part of it is letting go of a former need she had to act like an 8, to act like that really intense challenger type, but that's not actually who she is. So she's repatterning some of her behaviors from that.
Wow. I would imagine a lot of women probably resonate with that because like leadership looks like a certain thing in especially in the US
Right,
Western kind of cultures.
right.
And it's very kind of intense and male masculine in its approach. And I think a lot of I think a lot of leaders try to emulate that because they think that's what leadership is. And then when you actually recognize what your gifts and strengths are and step into that, the relief that comes from that, but then the whole like sort of like reorientation it takes to being able to be like, okay, how do I bring this forward into my leadership rather than something that's actually not really real or authentic for me?
Absolutely. I mean, I feel it's a different situation, but I really come to embrace that I'm a true introvert, which people do not believe, but I am.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this book by Susan Cain called Quiet. I don't know if you've ever read it, but
Mm-mm.
I really embraced the way that I lead, which is very much not that extroverted, get in the front of the room, da da da, just not who I am. And it's a similar thing that happened with her. She's like, okay, my gift is peace and systems. How can I use that?
Which is interesting because in my understanding of horses and their leadership, rarely is it that sort of dominant kind of energy. And many in horse herds, it's actually usually in a wild horse herd, it's a mare, it's a female that's leading most of the activities and deciding on things, and not from a place of aggression and from direction. There are moments where conflict happens in horse herds, but most of it's not from that place, and it's leading from a quieter place.
Yeah, definitely. I like to say from a very embodied place. It's
Uh-huh.
again, same with wolves. Like people think alpha wolves are
Uh-huh.
aggressive, like they're incredibly calm and very embodied.
Yeah. You said that you had another example or two that you wanted to share. Was there another one that comes to mind of how this looked at your workshop to bring Enneagram and Equus together?
Yeah. So the other example, it's another person that realized that she was a different type than she thought she was. So I don't know, maybe that's the gift that comes from this particular thing because it happens quite a bit. But this was in a round pen, so a smaller enclosure with one horse and one person that was being coached one-on-one. So this particular person had thought she was a 3, the achiever type like me. And she went in sort of with the intention of, much like a 3 would do, like, I want the horse to do this, and then I want it to do this, and then I want it to do this, and it's going to do it perfectly, and it's going to be great, and I'm going to be better than everybody else.
Very 3 way to approach that, having high
Right.
achievement standards for self before you even
Exactly.
start.
And the horse and others.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah.
High
Mm-hmm.
expectations
Uh-huh.
of everybody. And then she went in and she found that she was really intentionally tapping into her body and what her body was telling her because she knows that she tended to do that. And what she wanted to do was just kind of like hug the horse and hang out with the horse and just like not do anything. She didn't want to do anything. She just wanted to be with the horse. She realized she's actually a 2. And she's been similar to the other person over the course of the several months since this workshop has really been leaning into what does that even mean? It's like she's so identified with being, this type of person that got in there and got things done. And so becoming comfortable just being is different. So for me, I know this is true, and I know for a lot of other threes, the doing is actually a mechanism to regulate nervous systems. It actually helps us to stay grounded. So she has to sort of like, that's what she's working on. It's like, how do I actually be okay and feel safe when I am not doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I bet the doing can sometimes get in the way of the actual feeling what's really there.
Totally. Yeah, threes do not like feeling things.
Yeah, it's inconvenient to feel, whereas the twos
It's
are all about feelings.
right. It takes you off task.
So, a key thing I'm hearing in this that both the Enneagram is helping with and the Equus coaching is helping with is that we get into, as people, we get into habits of ways of showing up. We show up in ways that we believe we need to, as a leader, as a follower, as an employee, as a husband, as a wife, as a friend, we get into these habits of things that we've learned over time that we need to step into in order to like be okay or to be successful at something. And what Enneagram and Equus seems to be doing in both these examples is helping people reflect on, is that actually even true for me? Is that
Exactly.
how I want to show up? Is that what I feel actually called to? Is that authentic to me? And it actually helps you unhabituate and learn what is more real or true for me. Does that feel fair?
100%. I think partially because the horses are so good at modeling um, body mind connection that, I don't know about you, but I try to bring a lot of awareness to what's happening in the body during the process,
Mm-hmm.
because that's where they feel it. It's like, oh no, this does not feel good. I do not want to do that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think horses are so good at modeling that. They're just like, nope, gonna
Mm-hmm.
do this.
Yeah, so you've pulled out a couple things in this that are really important, that is different than traditional life coaching or therapy work. That's more of like that talk-based coaching or therapy. That Equus coaching allows people to be embodied in their body. You have to be in your body in order to be standing next to a horse. That's 1,000-pound animal right there. You got to be in your body. You got to know how to be there.
Yeah.
So it's embodied. It's also relational. In when I'm talking with my clients just over Zoom, they don't have the relationship playing out that's triggering whatever they're talking about. They're kind of recapitulating or sharing it with me post the thing or what they anticipate in the future. But in the Equus coaching session, it's actually happening right there.
Right.
What's playing out with the horse is right there, and they're getting feedback from the horse at that moment, and they have the opportunity to experiment or try with some new behavior and see how that changes how the horse responds to them. So there's like this important element that is in real time, in movement, embodied, relational type learning that helps us reflect on how we're showing up, how that's impacting the external environment, and then deciding, is that working for me? Does it feel authentic? Am I wasting energy by doing something that's not working?
Mhm.
And helps us try out new things and decide what actually will work for us and be more authentic going forward. Does that feel like a good example or a good definition?
Yes. Perfect. Very
Nice.
well said.
Love it. God, I love our work. It's so cool.
I know
It's
we
so
can relate
cool.
with this. It's crazy.
I know. I say that very often when I'm at on sites or a different workshop. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, I'm getting paid to do this. This is so cool.
Yeah.
So I want to hear a little bit more as we wrap up about the rest of your business. You've kind of alluded to some of the other things you do. What feels important for people to know about the work you're doing out there in the world?
Yeah. So, in addition to all these fun animal things I do, I'm a managing partner of Evolution, which is a group of about 70 global coaches. And we do primarily executive coaching for all sizes of companies from very early stage through like large public, a lot of nonprofits, a lot of government agencies at this point, although that might be changing a little bit lately. Um, but a lot of us come from executive backgrounds, like I mentioned, and we definitely sort of know the organizational development best practices, but we're all very firmly rooted in depth. And though we don't get into therapy, we similar to the work we do with the horses, the coaching we do is not surface.
Mhm.
It's really trying to create sustainable change with people. So it's really great. It's a great group of people, very soul aligned, and yeah, my passion stuff is the animals. So it's the
Mm.
wolves, and I did a program in Kenya last year, which are not pack animals, but very highly symbiotic ecosystem, obviously. So that is my thing: is really bringing people into contact with nature.
Beautiful. And what would you say is like the major benefit to your work at Evolution or the work that you've done prior to doing Equus Coaching? Like, what's the main benefit that bringing in the horses and doing Equus Coaching has added to your work and your career?
I think, it's sort of what we were speaking about before, though. The access to new ways of looking at things, new awareness, new ways of being is accelerated significantly. The weirder the experience, the more I see that happening. So you can't do that in a room.
Mm-mm. You're
It,
so right.
you can't. It's experiential, and I also there's this other part of it, especially working with a lot of executives. It sort of gives them license to be weird, kind of.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, your weirdo coach is asking you to do something. They're like, great, and they'll do it, but they might not ever feel comfortable or safe enough to do it otherwise. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I like that too. Just lets them let down their hair a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our work has a lot of depth to it, but it also is just fun.
I
It's
love
people have so much fun. Like I did a retreat with a bunch of men last year, and as the day was wrapping up, they're like, "Wait, it's coming to an end." Like, wait, I just like well, this was so fun. I want to do more of this. So like, I find a lot of people say that same thing
Yeah.
too. It's deep work, but it's also very fun.
It is. It is definitely fun, or at least gives you an opportunity to have fun. So even for, going back to the Enneagram, the types that don't particularly like having fun, if they can, like, it lets them actually play with it. Like, let's
Hmm.
have fun. And then there's the sevens, which are enthusiasts who will try everything on the earth because why not?
Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, I've had such a great time talking with you and learning about your not only your experience with the rest of the work you're doing in there, but learning more about how you're bringing Equus coaching into the world. And I love this concept that you're using an assessment tool like the Enneagram to keep helping people have that sigh of relief, that recognition of self, that understanding that just because I've done it or believe I have to do it this way doesn't mean I have to continue doing it that way. And I love that our work gives people chances to try out new things and see how it goes with a horse in relationship, embodied. So I just so appreciate the work that you're doing and so loved hearing about it. If people wanted to find more of your work out there in the world, how do they access you?
Yeah, so probably the easiest way is through the Evolution site. I've got a bio page up on our site, which is evolution.team. And I'm also on Instagram at Janine Davis Executive Coach.
Beautiful. I'll make sure those are in the show notes so that people can find you really easily. Thanks so much for joining us, Janine, and thanks for being one of our Equus coaches that are helping people understand what this work is all about.
Thank you. Thanks for having the course. I have loved every minute of it.